better. And so we've been walking through this book called The Story, which basically takes the scriptures and it puts them in a chronological order and in the form of a narrative. So as you read this, it is the scriptures, but it is one big story from beginning to end of how God in the beginning had a dream in His creation and what God will do to see His dream realized, even when at times it looks thwarted. So where we find ourselves today is in the book of Exodus. We will finish Exodus today. But just reminding you, God has done great things to preserve His people from famine and death. He has delivered them from slavery, 430 years in bondage, in an amazing supernatural way. God has shown Himself to be strong in the lives of His people, and the place where we pick up our story today is where the children of Israel have made their way through the parted sea, the parted Red Sea. And they've come now as they are traveling through places of wilderness and desert. These are tough places. Anytime you read in the scriptures that people find themselves in the wilderness or the desert, it is not the place they want to be. Okay? And this is representative to you and me. And so when we hear God's story, we listen to and look at our own story and we think about ourselves. Because many of us today will find ourselves in a place that we do not want to be. And some of us will log a lot of time in the place we don't want to be. And we will beg, and we will scream, and we will cry, and we will kick, and we will pray, and we will do everything we can to enlist God's help to get us out of where we are. But sometimes God leads us into the wilderness, into the desert, for a very specific purpose. And if we resist that place, we miss what God wants to do in the hard place in our life. So I just want you to think about that as we get started this morning. Now, where we find ourselves in chapter 5 of the story is that the children of Israel have made their way into the Sinai desert, and they are at the base of a mountain called, appropriately, Mount Sinai. And Moses is going to have a series of encounters with God. The first I want to read to you as we're getting started this morning. The rest of the Israelites are at the base of the mountain. Moses goes up, and here's what God says to Moses. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. Now if you obey me fully, and keep my covenant, then out of all the nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you are to speak to the Israelites." So, with orders, Moses goes down the mountain, and he shares these words with the people, somewhere between 1 and 3 million. Right? This nation building got off to a very slow start, but it is a lot of them now in the desert. And he shares these things, and their response is an eager response. Everything he told you, we will do. We're in. Count us in, Moses. Okay? They are eager, but they are naive. You ever been in a place where you are eager but naive? Everything God told you to tell us to do, we will do. Everything. Okay? So, just to give you a little perspective now, Moses is going to go up and down and up and down and up and down. He's going to have a series of 3 trips back and forth up and down the mountain. God's going to tell him things. He's going to go back down to his people. They're going to say something. He's going to go back up to them. By the way, do you know how old Moses is at this time? He's 80 years old. Do you know how high Mount Sinai is? It's about 7,500 feet. It's a little more than a mile. Okay, it's not a straight, flat mile. It's a mountainous mile. So when Moses gets to the top, God shares and says, all right, go back down. All right, come back up. All right, go back down. It has to be wearying, but the stairmaster, the original stairmaster Moses, makes his way. And on the third trip, he gets what are known to us as the Big Ten, the Ten Commandments. Okay? Now, God is going to give him some very succinct principles for how people, his new community, are to live with one another. Okay? Now, some of you already know these. They will be familiar to some. They might be brand new for some of the others. But the first 4 commandments are the way in which God's people are to relate to God. Okay? The first 4. So, on page 61 God says to Moses, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. He's reminding them about something that they are going to be quick to forget. But he says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. And you shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. He continues. He says, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. He gives Moses 4 things to bring to his people. Those first 4 of the 10 are ways in which they are to relate, renew, and reconnect with God. Okay? They're very simple, right? Okay. The next 6. He says, you are to honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. This is the way in which they are to interact with one another. Now remember, these people grew up generations in a very pagan society that was at times lawless. They didn't really know how to treat each other. They were not redemptive in any way towards one another. They were ruthless and lawless in many respects. And so God is laying down an initial, here are some things that I would like for you to practice, because these things are going to provide for you a means by which when people look at your life, they will see something different about you. There is no other nation on earth who practice these things in this way. And people, when they see this, are going to be intrigued. And it's going to point them back to the one that you are worshiping, the one you are honoring, the reason for which you are doing this. These last 6 are the ones that I want you to think about as you interact with each other. Because we know that our relationship with God is not separate from the relationship that we have from one another. We cannot divide the two. I cannot say I love God and I go through the motions of praying and reading the scriptures and attending services and offering sacrifices and doing all these things, and then just be a grouchy, miserable, negative person when I go home or when I'm at work. No. My relationship with God should impact centrally the way in which I treat you. And if it doesn't, then it will say something about the way in which my relationship with God has gone wrong. So God envisions a redemptive community of people that will point others back to Him. Now, when Moses is up there, he not only gives him 10 commandments, he gives Moses an entire book of the law. Okay? He wants to help the people understand one of a few things. Number 1, how they should live with one another. How they should live with Him. But he also wants them to understand that when they mess it up, and they will, how they are to deal with their sin. Now, sin is anything that separates us from God. Anything that causes us to move away from God's design and desire for our life. So while he's up there, he's telling Moses, when you guys mess it up, here's what I want you to do. And there is this institution of sacrifices that will occur that we'll go into a little bit later. Number 3, he also tells Moses, hey, understand this. I have related to you and special people over the course of the time since I called Abraham out. Okay? But now I want to have a deeper relationship with all of you. I want to dwell with you. I want to camp out in the desert with you. But I'm going to need a special place to stay. And so he gives them some instructions about this place where he is to stay. Okay? There is movement towards intimacy with God's people. We might look at it as slow movement, but having read the book and being a little further down the way, we know what is coming. But here is the beginning of God's desire to dwell with his people, all of them. Okay? So he gives instructions about the tabernacle. And it's very elaborate, and it takes several chapters, and we're not going to go into that. But if you like, this week, you can look at that. It's very specific and very significant. Okay? So, Moses is getting all of these instructions. God is helping Moses to understand why these things are important. Moses is feeling good about it until he realizes from God, God speaks to him, that not everybody else is excited about the things that I'm telling you. Not everybody is all that happy about your being away for a long period of time. How long has Moses been up on the mountain on this third time? 40 days. 40 days and 40 nights, about 6 weeks or so, and that's a long time when you're in the desert. 6 weeks, 40 days, 40 nights. Anytime you see the number 40, that just means a long time. So it hasn't taken them that long to forget what they had seen. It hasn't taken them that long to forget that God actually delivered them from the hand of their oppressors, set them free from their 430-year bondage, and made a way through the Red Sea on dry land. They had forgotten that. In fact, they forgot that 3 days after that. Their memory is faulty. And so while Moses is up there having a special moment with God, they're down there at the base having a special moment of their own. So God sends Moses back down. And as Moses makes his way back down, probably would take around 2 to 2.5 hours for all known. But as he's making his way back down, what the story says is that when the people saw that Moses was long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and they said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses," like he was just some fly-by-night guy, "as for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him. So since we don't know what's happened to him, why don't you make for us gods who will lead us into the next place?" And I want to say to you that at this point, this is not just a story of some old Israelites thousands of years ago. This is a place for you to think about your own life. Because I have found it in my own life and by observation of others, this great tendency we have to want gods who will give us what we want without making us accountable to what is right. When I get impatient, when I see that I have no control over a situation, it causes me to think about my options. And sometimes my options aren't to hang in there. Sometimes my options are to create shortcuts. And sometimes my shortcuts involve other gods. Now I want you to just think about yourself as you hear their story, because it sounds ridiculous. But maybe it's not so much. By the way, the people here who were being led out of bondage were in bondage for how long? 430 years. Their generation, the generation before them, the generation before them, their identity is largely what? They're a slave. Just because you have been delivered from your bondage doesn't mean that your identity has changed overnight. A lot of people come to this place where they make a faith commitment, right? Maybe it's in a place like this. they make a faith commitment, and then somehow in their mind they believe that everything's going to change. Now God's on my side, I'm going to do the right thing, and my life's going to get immediately better. The problem is, you've spent many years of your life under a different identity. And you have yet to work out in the desert places of your life the idols that are currently existing in your heart. Just because I say yes to God doesn't mean that instantaneously my life is completed and perfected. These are slaves who live in the land of idolatry, some 80 plus in Egypt. They're far more familiar with the gods of Egypt than they are with Yahweh. So it is no surprise after 40 days and 40 nights, a long time, that they would revert back to something that they knew. No surprise whatsoever. We continue. Aaron answered them and said, "Take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me." So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they handed him, and he made it into an idol, cast in the shape of a calf. Maybe Apis, the bull god. Perhaps. We looked at that last week, where Apis was one of the great deities for the Egyptians. Perhaps it's in the shape of Apis. So he fashions this idol. And then they said, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." Huh? This stuff that he just made with your earrings, this is the God who brought us out of Egypt? Really? Does that sound insane to you? Is that crazy? Am I the only one that just sounds nuts to? With no hesitation, they're like, "Your brother's been gone a long time. How about you create something? How about you work something up here for us? Okay, go get all your jewelry and I'll see what I can do." And so he shapes and works this idol. And then they start to give it. See, our idols only have the power we give them. But sometimes we give them great power, don't we? A dollar bill has no power in and of itself. Only what we attribute to the dollar bill. So when you're laughing and mocking and thinking about these crazy, stupid people with their golden cows, just hold on a second. They are now trying to attribute worth to a lifeless cow. And they are saying, they are not remembering who brought them out. They are saying, "Oh, so these are now the gods who brought us out of Egypt." Okay? Now, if you will remember when God was giving Moses the commandments, can you remember what the first two commandments were? "You shall have no other gods before me." They've already broken that one. Number 2, "You shall have no graven images." They've broken that one. Okay? They are 2 for 2. They're going to work their way down to 10. Finish off all of them shortly. But they're off to a good start. En masse, these people had broken the commandments. And they had broken them under the leadership of the mouthpiece, Aaron, who had no hesitation. He didn't say, "Hey guys, maybe we should just wait a second. Moses is going to be back down. He's my brother. I know him. I trust him. He's going to come back down. I trust God. I've seen God at work. Just be patient." Aaron didn't do that, did he? What did he do? He's like, "All right, go get some stuff. We'll make something. No problem." No hesitation at all. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, because your people, whom you brought up out of Egypt, have become corrupt." Can you imagine Moses? "My people, who I brought out of Egypt, I didn't want this job in the first place. You had to come to me in a burning bush. There's no way I wanted this job. My people who I brought out, are you kidding?" But he probably didn't say that because he knew God wasn't pleased. And he didn't want to encounter a God that wasn't pleased. So he says, "They have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them and have made themselves themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. They have bowed down to it and sacrificed to it and have said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt. Then he says, not good. Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. And then I'll make you into a great nation. He wants to start all over again. Wasn't the whole deal with Noah enough? God knew the stuff of what we were made, but God is angry. And if I were Moses, 80 years or none, I'm down that mountain as soon as I can get down that mountain. But Moses says something in response. Moses sought the favor, and watch how he turns the phrase. Moses sought the favor of the Lord his God. Lord, he said, why should your anger burn against your people, whom you brought out of Egypt? He's reminding him, not mine, yours. Why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to wipe them off the face of the earth? He has a lot of courage here. Listen to what he says to God. He says, turn from your fierce anger, relent, and do not bring disaster on your people. Wow. Moses is really wrestling with God here. I mean, if I'm Moses, I'm tempted to say, go ahead, do what you want to do. Deadbeats, 40 days and 40 nights. Couldn't last any longer than that. Go ahead, wipe them out. Let's start afresh. He doesn't. Moses intercedes in a very powerful way. And the end result of Moses interceding is that God's going to relent. God's going to turn from his anger. Because of one who stands in the gap. Now, this is a foreshadowing of one who will come. But Moses is one who is initially standing here and asking God for his grace to spare people from what they deserve. The story continues. So then the Lord relented and did not bring on his people the disaster he threatened. Moses turned and went down the mountain with 2 tablets of the covenant law in his hands. They were inscribed on both sides, front and back. These tablets were the work of God. The writings was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. When Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hands, and he broke them in pieces at the foot of the mountain. And he took the calf the people had made, and he burned it in the fire, and then he ground it into powder, and he scattered it on the water, and he made the Israelites drink it. Moses has had an anger issue for his whole life. We thought it was under control, right? Golly. So the tablets represented the covenant. Moses smashes the covenant because he knew they'd already broken the first 2. God knows whatever else they broke. So he smashes the tablets knowing that the covenant had been broken. And he comes and he is seething. And he is just ripping the camp apart. And the people are clueless in their revelry and drunkenness, in their idolatry. They're just clueless. And he comes down and he grounds this calf, and then he puts it in their water and he makes them drink it. There's a lot of symbolism and imagery of what that might mean. But he's not a happy camper. And he's going to go directly to his brother. Because that's who he left in charge. I mean, his brother was the one who was to act in his stead, but his brother just fell asleep at the wheel. And so he says to Aaron, he says, what did these people do to you that you led them into such great sin? What did these people do to you that you led them into this great sin? Listen to Aaron. Aaron says, do not be angry, my Lord. Huh? Do not be angry. You know how prone these people are to. These people, you made it. You led them. How prone these people are. They said to me, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. So I told them, whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off. And then they gave me the gold, and I threw it into the It's laughable, isn't it? It's funny. Here's what I want to say to you at this point in the story. Misplaced devotion will cause you to do crazy things in your life. Misplaced devotion will cause you to do crazy things in your life. And every single one of you know it to be true. We look at this story and we laugh because it's laughable. But it's not so funny when it's our story. This story, this part of the story, is about idolatry. It is about taking and putting something before God. It could be anything or anyone. And the damage it does to the relationship we have with God. And the damage it does to our relationship as a called out community of people to reflect the grace of God through and in our lives. Misplaced devotion will cause you to do crazy things in your life. Can anybody identify with that in any way, shape, or form? Misplaced devotion causes you to do some crazy things in your life. So there's going to be a cleansing. It's the part of the Bible when we hit these places, we don't like it. It's just terrible. But there is this disease called sin that is infecting these people, and it is leading them astray from God's place, and God will not tolerate it. When Moses was on the mountain, he said, there is a way to atone for the sin, but these people are unwilling to give up their idols. And we're going to cut them loose. I'm going to give you a way to help those who are sincere in their commitment, sincere in their faith, to deal with their sin. They're not sincere. They have no desire. They have a firm grip on their idols. And it is not only going to ruin their life, it's going to ruin the life of my called out, set apart people. And I cannot have this. So we come to this place, and there is this reckoning. And the next day, Moses goes and he says to the people, and he says, you have committed a great sin. But now I will go up to the Lord again, and perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. This is a foreshadowing. An individual who makes atonement for sin. Listen to what Moses says. So Moses goes back to the Lord and said, oh, what a great sin these people have committed. They have made themselves gods of gold, but now please forgive their sin. But if not, then blot me out of the book you have written. I don't know about you. I don't know if I do this. He's talking to God. And he's saying, listen, I know they screwed up royally. Please, please, pretty please, with sugar and spice on top, please, please, spare them, spare them. But if you won't, then take the hit. I want to talk about courage. He knows God will. He stands in the gap for people who need it. See, here's the thing about our idols. Our idols provide us a lot, right? They provide us identity. They provide us security. They bring us happiness. Right? And our idols take many different shapes and forms. We're not just talking about like a golden calf. But really, if we're honest with ourselves and we look at our lives, we know that there are places in our journey where there are things in our lives that are not as they should be. And sometimes our devotion is so strong that our devotion turns into addiction. We're just so committed to these things because they're going to provide us something that we've not been able to find from any place else or anyone else. And we're stuck. And when we're addicted, we become enslaved. See, our idols, ultimately, they provide for us certain things, and that's why we serve them. But they ultimately lead us to become enslaved. Our idols can provide for us identity and security, but they cannot set us free, and they cannot give us grace, which is really what all of us most need. It could be our job, it could be success, it could be our intellect, it could be our looks, it could be how well we do in school. It could be any number of things. You just think about the idols that you have worshipped in your life along the way, that you're worshiping even now. And so here is Moses saying, listen, I don't even know what to say. I told you I was slow of speech. I told you I wasn't cut out for this job. I told you I didn't know what I was doing. But these people matter to me, and I know they matter to you. But if you're just so angry that you're going to just destroy them all, then go ahead and destroy me, because I don't want to live here without them. He totally places his life. He stands in the gap, and he looks to God, and he just says, if you're going to take them, take me. It's incredible. Well, then the Lord said to Moses, leave this place, you and the people you brought up, again, that you brought up out of Egypt, and go up to the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I will send an angel before you and drive out the Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, Amalekites. Go up to the land flowing with milk and honey. But listen to what he says. But I will not go with you, because you're a stiff-necked people, and I might destroy you along the way. It's not to tell God's resume. Moses is not happy. He says, well, if you're not going up, then I'm not going up. If you don't go, I don't go. I can't do this without you. And see, here's a place where Moses has learned. See, Moses had been in the wilderness far longer than the rest of his friends. It had taken Moses a while, and that's why he was leading them. God had brought Moses to the backside of the desert to deal with his anger, to deal with the unresolved issues in his life, to help him get rid of the idols that he had been worshiping. And he had been working it out in Moses' life. Moses was just a little further ahead than the rest of the guys. Okay? And he has great faith that given enough time, they'll come along too. But he says to God, he says, listen, if you're not going, I'm not going. I mean, these are some bold conversations Moses is having with God. But again, he's not looking to his own eloquence. He's not looking to his leadership skills. He's not looking to his own abilities. He's not fooled by who others might see him being. He knows that the only reason they are where they are is because God has done great work. So he says, if you're not going to go, I'm not going to go. And so God changes his mind again. Moses says, remember that this nation is your people. And the Lord replied, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then Moses said, if your presence doesn't go with us, don't send us from here. And the Lord said to Moses, I will do the very thing you have asked, because I am pleased with you, and I know you by name. I don't know about you. For me, when I read Moses, I can't help but see one who comes later who's going to stand in the gap and atone for our sins once and for all, his son Jesus. So I have that playing in my head. But here's one of the things I want you to know. God wants to come and tabernacle among his people. He wants to dwell. He wants to live with. But this sin problem, it's an issue, and it separates us from God. So God gives us a way in which to deal with this sin issue. And Moses, leading out, is going to instruct and to guide people so that they will know how to not live as slaves. And we sit in this place today, having lived a certain way, some of us for many years, enslaved to things that have not served us well. And we come to this place of decision, not where we one time say, yes, I'm in, I will do everything that you said. But we have to live that out, a long obedience in the same direction over a period of time, so that as God works these idols out of our lives in the desert, harsh places, we can respond and know that He will provide for us in the ways that He always has. We're forming and shaping new identity based on our faith relationship with God. So when we hit these harsh places, we will be tempted to make cows. We will be tempted to give our devotion and our affection to one other than God. And I would say to you, don't do it. It will not serve you well, and it will not take you to the place that you want to go, that promised land, that place flowing with milk and honey, that place you envision that you want to be in your life. It will not make you the person you want to be, and it will not take you to the place you want to go. Now that's a hard word for some of you, because some of you are wrestling right now with what it would mean for you to release your grip on the idols that control your life. Some of you have found your identity and security in your jobs for far too long. What happens when you lose it? Then who are you? We place them in relationships. We place them in a whole variety of things. Many people you will see going crazy this afternoon because they've placed their identity in the fan of the Patriots or the Giants. And some people will be super happy at the end of the day, and some people will be incredibly sad. But the idols, they exist. We think it's funny, and in a way it is, but people will act like maniacs today watching a simple game. People will place a lot of money on this game. They'll place money on everything around the game, hoping to earn a quick buck so that they can make a golden cash. Our journey is a journey of people who were once enslaved, awakening to the reality that we don't have to live that way, and being set free along the way. See, we are to participate with God in our lives, and part of our participation is that when we come to the place where we see that something has a stronghold on us, then we have to do whatever we need to do to release its grip, our grip on it, and to put it on us. And some of us are going to need help because our idolatry has turned to addiction. And we're powerless over the thing that now controls us. We need help. An idol can give us a sense of esteem and security and identity, but it can't give us the thing we need most, and that's grace. And it can't set us free. But I'm here to tell you that God offers this freedom through Christ. As we continue our journey, we're going to see that. But Moses is the first one who stands in the gap to atone for sin. We have a sin problem, and it needs to be dealt with. So I just want you to think, as we continue this journey, I want you to think about your life and where you are and where you want to be. Because the decisions you make will take you there. Your choices will shape your character, and your character will shape your future. It is true. So what choices are you making these days? Where is your identity? Where is your security? Where are you? Who are you? And what do you want for your life? Think about that as we pray. Lord, it is easy to look at your book and to laugh at the crazy nature of these stories and to have such a disconnect from them that we just see them as historical stories meant to amuse or entertain or even inform. But they're not that. They are to give us a glimpse into our own soul. And I pray this day you would help us to see ourselves for who we are and to see you for who you are. To open ourselves to a new way of living. One where you are, Lord. Where you guide, deliver, save, heal. So I pray that you would speak to each of us in the place of our deepest need this day. And continue to lead us in your way. It's in Christ's name, pray. Bill's going to come and share a few pieces of community news, and then we're going to have a going out song. I have to go speak at another church in the community that's out of pastor, so I've got to get out of here pretty